If everyone can just mute themselves, that would be fantastic. Can you hear me okay? Thumbs up? Yep, awesome. Right, here we go. Okay, so narcissistic abuse recovery. So why should that concern us really as hypnotherapists? Well, basically, a hypno colleague of mine who works with counsellors, and she'll remain unnamed, but spoke to a counsellor who has a huge practice and said, well, you know, my friends created this program, and are your clients affected by this? And the counsellor said, yeah, about 80% of them really have been through these things. So it is a big issue. So, and it's not just men who are narcissists, women can be narcissists as well. And as a few of us were discussing at the beginning of this, oftentimes men just totally get overlooked or ignored, and they suffer from toxic shame equally as much as women, but they don't have the networks that we have to talk to our girlfriends. So I really do feel terribly sorry for guys. So let's have a look if I can get my slide to change. Let me see. Here we go. So, okay, so narcissism is the personality disorder, and here we've got what the DSM says, which of course is the American Psychiatric Association. So narcissists usually display some of the following symptoms. Now, let me just say that it probably helps to think of narcissism as a bit of a spectrum. So we all have narcissism within us. There is healthy narcissism. So, you know, if we're down one end of the spectrum and a psychopath is up the other end. And then in between all of that comes the narcissistic traits. And some people have a few, and some people have a lot. Some people are diagnosed as narcissists, or no, not that many. And then, of course, you have sociopath, or you have malignant narcissist, sociopath, psychopath. So just think of it as a continuum or as a spectrum. So basically, when we're talking about narcissists in general these days, we're talking about people that have narcissistic traits. And some of them are very obvious and some of them not so obvious. So let's take a quick run through here, and I'll just read through these because some of you might be on phones and things where you can't really read it. So you get grandiosity with expectations of superior treatment from other people, fixation on fantasies of power, success, intelligence, attractiveness, etc. A self-perception of being unique, superior, and associated with high-status people and institutions. Need for continual admiration from others. A sense of entitlement to special treatment and to obedience from others. Exploitation of others to achieve personal gain. An unwillingness to empathise with the feelings, wishes, and needs of other people. Most of them just can't. Intense envy of others and the belief that others are equally envious of them, which is often, of course, not the case. And constantly demeans, bullies, and belittles others. So within this, you may see some narcissistic traits in people that you know. And that's okay, because it happens. And we'll talk about different kinds of narcissists as we go through. So this really interested me. What causes narcissistic personality disorder? Well, the committee's really out. It's not really known, but the Mayo Clinic says environment, and this is the one I've heard of most, and I can, I guess, relate to this from my own upbringing. So mismatches in parent-child relationships with either excessive adoration or excessive criticism. Now, as we see a bit later on, narcissists tend to scapegoat somebody. So if you had two children, let's say, with a narcissistic parent or parents, then you would find that one would be the golden child who was absolutely everything the sun shot out of their bum, basically. and the other one would just be criticised all the time. Now, either one of those children could grow up to be a narcissist. And of course, the golden child is often the school bully and has a lot of traits even very early on in the piece. Our genetics, inherited characteristics, which of course concerns a lot of people if they've had narcissistic parents, and neurobiology, connection between brain, behaviour and thinking. And of course with narcissists, they have disordered thinking. That is one of the features of narcissism. The way that we think is not the way that they think. And a lot of what they're thinking is very dark. Okay, so this is where it really steps into to concern us as therapists. So what is narcissistic abuse? It's verbal abuse, it's psychological abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, financial abuse is a big one, and some sexual abuse. So our clients may be suffering from any combination of these if they've actually had any sort of a relationship with a narcissist. Now that relationship could be from their family of origin. And of course, if you have a narcissistic parent, it really sets you up to attract narcissists because of course that's your normal. You've been belittled, you've been criticised, you've had all of these, well, not necessarily all of these types of abuse, but you've probably had verbal abuse and emotional abuse as a young child. So you're primed up basically to attract a narcissistic partner. So the core of the narcissistic persona is actually insecurity. They are very insecure, whether they're the grandiose type or whether they're the meek and mild seeming type. They are very insecure at their core. Their hypersensitivity, grandiosity, as we've talked about before, entitlement, superficiality. I mean, when you meet them first, if you start dating them, and those that have had relationships in the type of love relationship will understand this, what you see is not what you get. So they're really wearing a mask when you first meet them. Validation seeking very much. Some are particularly arrogant. Some of them are rages and some of them are not. Manipulation and exploitation, that's kind of their currency. A stunning lack of empathy, a stunning need for control, contemptuousness, very dismissive, and intense envy and jealousy. And look, we can all sort of envy someone or something, but this is like pathological envy and jealousy. So as I said earlier on, and some of you might have missed it, that narcissist is a word that's used a lot now, probably sometimes really out of context, but a narcissist can also be described as high conflict, toxic, difficult, or antagonistic. So back in the day, they were just difficult people. And of course, toxic, people may talk about toxic relationships as quite a high likelihood that they've been dealing with someone on the narcissistic spectrum, if that is the case. So really, a narcissist is a fragile tyrant. They're very defensive because the ego is very, very insecure. No matter how grandiose they might appear and how loud and successful and all the rest of it, I mean, think perhaps of Donald Trump. They are fragile tyrants when it comes to their ego. They need to be either the hero or the victim. It can never be their fault, never. And they will say black is white and gaslight people, tell them, try and make them feel that they're going crazy. If you remember the old movie called Gaslight back in, I don't know, 1930s or something, it was a black and white movie where this guy was trying to drive his wife mad or make you think that she was mad. So shame is a key dynamic for all narcissists. Now, they can throw tantrums if their ego is threatened. Again, not all of them, but some of them do. And for the world, it's like a 2-year-old throwing a tantrum. Honestly, it is. It's like this great big adult person throwing a 2-year-old tanty because they're not getting things the way they want it. So you get the grandiose type, and they think that they are the king or the queen, because of course equally it can be women, of the world, and everybody should recognize that. Now the inferior sort think, well, why can't everyone see that I should be the king or the queen? And so of course they project a lot of their quite dark stuff onto their victim or their source of supply. So source of supply means that they have to have someone constantly giving them energy. So they are energy drains, they are energy vampires. So they project a lot of the dark stuff onto their victim or source of supply, might be their girlfriend, their wife, whatever. And so they don't see that person, because their thinking is disordered, they don't see that person as we would see them. They see this projection of the person, which sometimes is absolutely horrible. And then they go around telling people horrible things about this person that's absolutely not true. So it's really horrible. And also transference onto their victim or their source of supply. So, you know, they may have had issues perhaps, let's say, with the mother or someone like that, and then they actually act as if, or transfer that onto their wife or girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is. Remembering that, of course, you know, it's both genders. So both of those things, projection and transference, are horrible. If you're on the receiving end of that, this person doesn't even really know or want to know who you really are. So humility and meekness. Now, some of them, they're not all Donald Trump-like. Some of them are very quiet and seemingly very humble and meek, but it's just a facade. It's another one of their false personas and masks that they wear. And as I said before, a huge energy drain, or an energy vampire, if you want to think about it like that. They wear you out. You get absolutely drained trying to deal with them. And, you know, this can be very true in the workplace as well, of people that have got narcissistic bosses. And you may have clients, you know, that are struggling with their careers, and often that can be the cause of it. Alrighty, so let's keep going. Okay, so the most common of the types of narcissist are overt and covert, which is really what we've been talking about. And then you can have communal narcissist, which is someone who is a real do-gooder, you know, does heaps and heaps of good in the community. And people go, oh, you know, so-and-so is just, oh, Joe Bloggs, he's wonderful. You know, he belongs to all these clubs and he helps people. But when he gets home, or she gets home, totally different. So that's a communal narcissist. Then you get malignant ones that are just absolutely horrible, and that's heading more towards the sociopath and psychopath sort that end of the spectrum. But really, in general, the clients that we get are victims, or have been victims, of the overt and the covert. So an overt is really easy to spot because you probably don't like them too much. They seem as if they're full of themselves. They're loud, they're brash. Look at me, you know, look at what I've got, talking about money, and they've got a Ferrari and whatever it is. You know. So extrovert, exhibitionist, overly confident. They want to be envied. They want people to be jealous of their success and their material possessions. Can often be aggressive or abrasive, all of those things. So pretty soon you start to think, no, I don't really like that person. Overly competitive. Now, absolutely. I mean, competition is good, but when every single thing is a battle, everything is a competition in day-to-day living, then that gets pretty tiring pretty quickly. So those ones are easier to spot and probably more likely to brass you off. These ones I think are really scary because they don't present like the overt. They're often introverted, they're quiet, they appear to be humble or meek, absolutely neurotic, terribly, terribly negative. But remembering you may not see these things, the neurotic and the negative, you may only see the humble or meek. They are pathologically jealous. So anything that somebody has, they want it for themselves, or they want to take it, or for that person to lose it. And that's where often a lot of things like financial abuse come in. And they have malignant intuition. So, they can pick up on things very, very easily, and stuff that we probably wouldn't even think of. They're reading into stuff. It's not nice. It really isn't. So moving on. So I was talking about scapegoating before. So overt narcissists look for someone lower on the social hierarchy to bring down and totally humiliate. Now, I know that sounds horrible. Narcissists have an agenda. They all have an agenda. They only get together with someone, if this is a love relationship, if that person has something they want. It might be their house, it might be free labor, perhaps they want them to have children for them. It could be any number of things at all. So covert narcissists look for someone higher on the social hierarchy. So, narcissists are not looking for losers. They're not. They're looking for successful people. And that's why a lot of, most of my clients over the years have been women, and that's generally how it goes. But these narcissists are looking for a successful, competent, capable, professional woman or man to bring down, basically, and to use them for what they can use them for. It might be status. It could be anything. It could be that perhaps they can get them a good job or on TV, or who knows what their agenda is, but they do have an agenda. So that's always something to remember. So the damage to the victim of narcissistic abuse is severe, and it's long lasting. It doesn't just go away when the relationship breaks up, especially if it's been a long-term relationship and they've been subjected to this day in, day out for perhaps years. And you'll find that clients can actually end up in essentially a prison of their own mind. So most victims suffer from toxic shame, and they cover up for the narcissist. So a lot of people, and I can remember being in this boat myself, are so ashamed of getting into a relationship with a narcissist when they should have known better. And hey, for me, I was not young, and I'd written a book about relationships back in 2014. And what happened in 2015? I ended up with a narcissist. Now, admittedly, I was at a vulnerable time in my life when I was relocating, but still, it just shows you that you can be as savvy as anything, and kind of in a weak moment or a vulnerable time, they can take advantage. And when I met him, he was lovely. He was so kind, to do anything for me, until I actually moved into his house here in the little town of Waihi, and then everything changed. But I won't bore you with that story tonight. But just let me tell you that I've walked this walk. So one of the really critical things, and I've just done an episode of my podcast on this week. My podcast is called the Reclaim Your Life Show. So is emotional abuse. Now, a lot of people really just think of abuse as being physical violence. Even now, even I know there's a lot of information out there, but we need to get really clear that our clients know what emotional abuse, well, what all the types of abuse is, but particularly emotional abuse. So just running through a few of these here for people that can't see. So examples of emotional abuse: use of weapons as a means of threatening, withholding affection as punishment, name calling, insulting, and continuous criticism, trapping a partner at home or preventing them from leaving, threatening to hurt children, pets, or other members of a partner's family, and demanding to know where a partner is every minute. Refusing trust, such as by acting jealously or possessively, trying to isolate a partner from their friends or family. Now, that isolation from friends or family is one of their core behaviours. Destruction of a partner's property, gaslighting, as we mentioned before, making a partner believe lies, but it's also making a partner feel like they're going crazy and telling them that they're going crazy. Monitoring where a partner goes, who they call, who they spend time with, and humiliating a partner. Making accusations of cheating when they're totally unfounded. Jealousy of outside relationships. Now, that can be any sort of relationship. Doesn't have to be with, another man or woman. It can just be, I don't know, work colleagues, or whether you belong to the local choir or something like that. Serially cheating on a partner and then blaming them for the behaviour. Cheating is one of their big things too. Attempting to control a partner's appearance. That's a big one. And a lot of these things, they creep in. It's like, the frog in the pot of water. It gradually heats up, gradually heats up. It doesn't start straight away like boom. It's just gradual, gradual, gradual. So cheating to prove that they are more desirable than a partner, telling a partner that they are lucky to be with them, and telling a partner that they will not find anyone better. But here's hoping the partner does, is all I can say. Okay, so looking at it from our therapist's point of view, it's short-term effects on the brain and the body. So shame, hopelessness, fear, confusion, moodiness, aches and pains, difficulty concentrating, muscle tension. And of course, the longer the emotional abuse continues, the more prolonged these effects can be. And then long-term effects on the brain and body: chronic pain, insomnia, social withdrawal or loneliness, guilt, anxiety, eventual feelings that the partner or parent is in fact correct and they are no good or ugly or whatever it is that they're being told day in, day out. And so studies show that emotional abuse may contribute to the development of fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome. And of course, there are quite a lot of other things as well. So this, I'm just going to shift all you lovely people down there so I can read, that's better. So trauma bonding, this is a really interesting thing. And I guess a lot of you have probably heard about the Stockholm Syndrome. And if you haven't, Google it. So I got this from the CPTSD Foundation online. So I'll just run through it quickly for you. So trauma bonds occur when we go through periods of intense love and excitement with a person, followed by periods of abuse, neglect, and mistreatment. And the cycle of being devalued and then rewarded over and over works over time to create a strong chemical and hormonal bond between a victim and his or her abuser. So this is why victims of abuse often describe feeling more deeply bonded to their abuser than they do to people who consistently treat them well. So anyone who is in an abusive relationship can become trauma bonded to their abuser, but people who experience traumatic relationships as children, as I was saying earlier, may be more prone to these types of bonds. Because, of course, they've already experienced those types of relationships with parents, caregivers, and so the nervous system is already primed to go back into that cycle again. So some of the signs of trauma bonding, and you may have heard this with your clients, you want to leave someone, but you simply cannot bring yourself to cut them out of your life, even though they're absolute so-and-sos. You're in a relationship that you would never want any of your loved ones to be in. And I've heard that before, people justifying their relationship. Oh, but I wouldn't want my sister or my daughter or whatever to be in that, and thinking, yeah, they're not getting it. So the person has some characteristics that remind you of a toxic parent or other caregiver. And you find yourself trying to get back to the past. So in other words, the initial stages of being with this person when everything was rosy, but of course it never really gets back to there for any consistent length of time. And of course, you justify behavior that you know is wrong. And that's quite easy to do, particularly when you're stuck in the whole toxic shame thing. And I know myself, I've been guilty of doing that when I should have known a lot better. Alrighty, so we will, now sorry about this, it's very hard to read even if you've got a big screen, but it's a really good illustration of the narcissistic relationship cycle, so I just wanted to put it up there. So of course the narcissist sitting over there on the left, it's always rejection. They've got an absolute fear of rejection. So here's the relationship cycle. Number one, idealization, love bombing, rush into intimacy. And those of you that heard what Justine was saying when we first came on, same thing. And the narcissist puts the victim on a pedestal. Now, really, none of us want to be on a pedestal, because then you're going to topple off, because, we're human. We make mistakes. We're not perfect. So then you get into number two there, devaluation. So everything's rosy, and then all of a sudden they start devaluing you when they think they've got you sufficiently entangled. And that may be when you move in together, when you get pregnant, all sorts of, there's different things. I call it myself the tipping point, and there always is a tipping point. So devaluation may occur behind the victim's back. If not, then you'll get episodes of narcissistic rage and all sorts of other abuse, verbal, emotional, physical, financial, of course, is a huge one. And then, of course, the narcissists, they, while you're still in a relationship, they're often getting ready to replace you. They've got to have another source of supply. They've got to have a relationship. So they identify the next source of supply, and this can happen simultaneously with the devaluation process, or very quickly thereafter, because they can't be without their supplies. And it's a relationship addiction, essentially. So there we go. So we go then into four. So we can have a discard by the narcissist or a discard by the victim. So by that stage, the victim may be sick of what's going on and think, well, no, I'm out of here, or not. So if we look at how it goes here, so we go discard, let's say by the narcissist, and then we go into this. They don't actually like letting go of their victims. It's like a cat and a mouse. You're their prey. So you get hoovering and triangulation. So hoovering is a blatant attempt to suck the victim back into the relationship. And because the narcissist wants attention. Now, it's just like kids misbehaving. They don't care if it's negative attention. Any sort of attention is good. And they just absolutely, they love to have a third person there to triangulate you with. Someone who maybe it's their ex, or just, someone that they can use to make you feel insecure. So of course, if you get caught into the hoovering triangulation thing, then it just starts to go around again. It never gets any better. It actually gets worse. But if we get down here and the victim does a discard, then they can go grey rock, which essentially means you have the least to do with them that you can, and you react the least that you can, just like being a rock, basically a grey rock. The risk, of course, of being a grey rock is that you can get sucked back in. But of course, when you have children to a narcissist, this often can happen. It's a very difficult situation when you can't actually do this and go no contact, because that is the only way to go, is to go no contact, for any of us and for our clients. So, because I'd had so many people over the years, and I said mainly women for me, come to me often presenting with other issues, and it started off really about, the majority of them started off when I was doing weight loss coaching. I was a coach before I was a hypnotherapist, and we'd start sort of talking about their weight loss, and some of them actually didn't really need to lose weight. And it would be like, well, actually, it was the only reason I could give my husband or partner or whatever to come and see you was to come and see you for weight loss. But actually, I'm just so unhappy. And then we'd go through the whole system. And so I created a system over the years that was more of a coaching system. But what I've done now is actually incorporate hypnosis with the coaching. So this is my system called Hypno Rescue, Reclaim Your Life After Narcissistic Abuse. And this is a course for therapists to use with their clients. And so it consists of an ebook that I wrote last year, a workbook for the clients to do some coaching exercises or coaching tools, whatever you want to call it. Some people call it CBTs, the same sort of thing. And then we have the therapist handbook, which explains a bit about why you're doing what you're doing and what to do next. And a script book for therapists of scripts that I've written. And I'll show you how that all works in a second. Plus there are videos. There's how to spot a narcissist and how to avoid a narcissist. So they're very good videos to watch. And a PDF of narcissistic abuse stories, which people have kindly let me use. Of course, everything's been changed, so they're not recognisable, but some of them will probably make you gasp. And a bonus MP3 as well for your client to listen to. So this is the program overview here, and you can see more of this on my website, janhaldane.com, courses for therapists. So week one, of course, we're trying to find out where they are in their life. So we're using a coaching tool called the Wheel of Life, which most of you are probably familiar with. It's probably the best known coaching tool. And we're also sending them home with Narcissists in Your Life worksheet, so people can begin to see their patterns, and also getting them in touch with their own inner healer so that they can start using their own resources for healing. And so this process is, of course, every week you discuss what they took home with them. And then the script for this week it's just a lesson. So we're here on planet Earth to learn our lessons. If we don't learn the lessons, they keep getting repeated, unfortunately. But we can't beat ourselves, keep beating ourselves up. And of course, this is what a lot of the clients are doing because it was just a lesson. And then we look at red flags. So that's their take home. What were the red flags? And of course, they're reading the ebook or have read the ebook by now. So they're getting an idea of what the red flags are and what they missed. And of course, if you don't know what to look for, you will miss it. So reinforcing again to the client, look, it's a lesson. You didn't know what to look for, but you're being taught that now. So again, we discussed last week's, so it was the red flags exercise, and we do some inner child work, because we've got to do some inner child work with this. A lot of it goes right back to the family of origin. And tolerations worksheet, because if you were in a family of origin with a narcissistic parent, you learned very, very early on in the piece to tolerate all sorts of things, and you keep on doing it. So we want to get really clear on that. And again, week 4 is the control room, which is a bit tongue-in-cheek for us as hypnotherapists. But so we discussed last week's tolerations worksheet, and then we go into soul retrieval, taking back your power, taking back all those parts of you that have scattered somewhere with these types of relationships. Locus of control, what is it that you can actually control? Because you've probably been controlled, been a puppet for perhaps many, many years. Some people 30 odd years. Jekyll and Hyde. I think we all know the story of Jekyll and Hyde. And so when the narcissist is in public, just like I was saying, like with communal narcissists, that they appear to be very kind and helpful and all the rest of it. So mostly other people don't see the other side of them that you stuck at home with them sees. So Jekyll and Hyde, nice in public, horrid at home is what I call it. And so we talk about the locus of control exercise, and then finding the real me. And that's a really big one. So we're moving them out of the patterns into finding who they really are in themselves, not as some sort of distorted, disordered projection of a narcissist. And the take-home task there is the real me, fact versus fiction. So who they really are versus who they may have been told they were. Week 6 is the awakening. Again, we discussed last week's tool. So we're starting to future pace now, meet your future self, getting them to look forward with the bucket list. What is it you want to do? Because, when you've been in these relationships for a great many years, you don't even know. You don't know what you want. You might not know who you are anymore. And the last week, week 7, journey back to self. So we talk through the bucket list. So what is it they're wanting to do? And the script is reclaim your life, which is exactly that. We want them to reclaim their life for themselves. And then we do some goal setting. We set some SMART goals with them, and we look again at the wheel of life and how it's developed over the 7 weeks, how all the areas of their life have developed over the 7 weeks that they've been in session with us as clients. So for HNZ special deal, and I can put these links in the chat later if that's okay with you, Justine. Yep. So this is my janhaldane.com courses for therapists is where you'll find it. There's a coupon code here, HNZ Opt 2020. And instead of $97, and of course it is all in US dollars, it's now $37 with the coupon. Because I'd like as many people that have suffered of being in these types of relationships to get help. And one of the reasons that I really did this course was because I'd heard from some clients that certain therapists, and they weren't actually hypnotherapists, but therapists, don't understand, they don't get what this is like, being in a narcissistic relationship. And often the poor clients were actually getting re-traumatized. And of course, the other thing is that a narcissist, like if they went for, say, couples coaching, the narcissist is, of course, going to try and ingratiate him or herself with the therapist. They love that, trying to get the therapist on side so they can say, well, the professional thinks that, I'm right, it's me, you're the wrong one. So that, you know, it's very, very, very tricky when you're dealing with narcissists. And even if you are just, your client is just the party that is the victim, often if they're still with the narcissist will start calling you and trying to put across their side of the story, and you know, it'll probably, half of it will probably be a fabrication. So yeah, they're very difficult to deal with as clients. And so I created this course so that you know what to look out for and how to help your clients. So I am going to stop sharing, and Nicola wants to come in. Will I let her in, Justine? Yeah, you've done it. Great.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Nicola.
Hi.
So so yeah, so if there's any questions, I'm happy to chat with anyone about anything. Otherwise, you can find more information on my website. But yeah, basically, your clients may not present with this, but it may be underlying a lot of other issues, including physical.
You find so many clients, it goes back to that, you know, even a relationship that's been years ago that they were married in for 20 years, but they're with someone new, but there's still either weight or the after effects are from that first relationship that they luckily got out of.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they don't do the work after that relationship, then it carries forward into the subsequent relationships, and it causes all sorts of issues. And then the clients themselves, you know, they're still getting flashbacks, and, you know, it's complex PTSD a lot of the time if they've been in these relationships for a great many years.
Put your hand up who recognised one listening to that without realising, hey, they were actually one, because I did. I recognised when I messaged Tristan privately and said, I think I just picked up on something about someone. And he's like, so did I. You know, because they're not so obvious and you're not in a relationship with them, so you're not seeing the stuff that's behind closed doors. But yeah, interesting.
I thought Jan was talking to me, actually. You know, I can't, like you, I've never done it before, and I got sucked in recently, and yeah, amazing. And you've just, when you highlight it, like when you're in it, you don't see it the same when you're out of it, and then when you've itemized it like that, I thought, boy, you're talking to me. You know. Yeah,
that's right. It's very easy because they do try and rush the whole thing. So it's very easy to get caught up in it, and you can't see the wood for the trees. You know, other people can see, but you can't see the wood for the trees, and that's one of the reasons they want to isolate you from the other people, is because, of course, they can see. And if you're isolated as well, their normal becomes your normal, because you've got no one else to associate with who is normal, if you know what I mean.
And I'd just like to add, I'd like to touch on the fact that the toxic shame thing is one of the things that I think a lot of people try and hide. And then by hiding it, you're actually making things worse, because you end up going down this place where your life is an altered reality. What happens at home is not reality of when you walk out the door. And the other thing, I think, one thing that you sort of touched on too, is the fact that when you finally, as you say, either the person discards you or you discard them, that's when the healing starts to take. And sharing the story, I think, as we all know, with our clients, as well as once you start sharing your story, you know there's so many others out there. And that's when the healing really takes place.
It is, yeah. And I think one of the key things too is that when you are in the grips of the whole toxic shame thing, you feel so alone. You feel like, oh, you know, I was the only one that was this stupid to get caught up in this. And so it really is giving your client, letting them know that they are supported, that they're not alone. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a sister who's a narcissist, and as a consequence, my life for many, many years was absolute hell. She was a very covert narcissist, and I'm only mentioning this because we generally think about narcissists with intimate relationships of couples, and so yeah, my situation would be, no, I guess it's not necessarily unusual for people, but we probably don't recognise that with clients if the situation's with siblings. I would never have thought about it until I've learned about narcissism.
Yeah, I've seen it quite a bit with clients with siblings, of course with parents, and because that was my reality. I was a narcissistic mother, so unfortunately, but yeah, you do see it. It's not only just the love relationships, and then of course there's the workplace ones as well. Some people go through hell with narcissistic bosses.
Yeah, I've been in a workplace scenario with two narcissists. Unfortunately, it was the most horrific time of my life. But I have had adult clients with mums. This is the first time I've ever come across it where they're on mum, and that was really difficult. Sorry I missed your talk earlier. I've just been everywhere, but I'll watch the whole replay and take some notes. But thank you for this. Even this part of conversation's interesting. Yeah. It's really hard when it's their parent, it was particularly their mum, for them to recognise and to accept. It's really hard for them.
Isn't it amazing that we're on this forum, and there's probably 5 of us that have all spoken out about certain things that we've actually experienced ourselves.
Yeah.
And that, so if that puts it in perspective of the scope of just in this little realm, imagine how much difference we could make with others, eh?
It's probably one of the most common disorders. Narcissism, extremely difficult to treat, and it's an underpinning pathology of many major mental health disorders. But in psychotherapy, its prognosis is poor generally. Yeah.
So you would be dealing with them every day.
Prisons are filled with narcissists. I deal with victims of narcissistic relationships or relationships with narcissists. Yeah, there is something about, it's a cluster B in DSM-4. Narcissistic personality disorder is within the cluster B of emotionally unstable personalities. So we have borderline personality and antisocial, the social personality, narcissistic personality in cluster B, according to DSM 4-5. Yeah, it's difficult to treat, and we don't give a diagnosis really. It's just having a diagnosis, having written a label of narcissistic personality disorder. It's quite damaging. Can be difficult to carry it on. Even having a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder doesn't really have much value, because there are no therapy, there are no services that provide systemic therapy to borderline personality, narcissistic personality, but they often cross the boundaries of diagnostic classifications, borderline and narcissism.
I suppose a lot of the reason they're hard to treat as well is because they don't think anything's wrong with them. It's everybody else who's got something wrong with them.
the wedge in where is for treatment and therapy is when the narcissistic injury happens, or where they suffer, and that's when they usually suffer major mental disorder, usually depression or suicide, because there is this like Jane explained, very hard sort of shell outside in overt narcissism, and very weak ego. That's constant, that voice in the at the background constantly says, you are shit. You are not worth anything. So when that shell cracks, that's when Pandora box opens. So shell can crack when they lose the source of their own worth. So when they lose job or position or money or a partner. So yes, that's the only. I had few patients with successful outcome, but it's very rare. Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that what Agata is saying, it's very rare for the narcissists to be treated or anything major to happen with them. They often say they're going to therapy, but nothing really comes of it. It's usually when they're trying to get someone back, they'll go and see a therapist, but they may say they've changed, but often, that's not the case. So really, yeah, we are not working with the narcissist, we're working with the person that's been with them, be that their love interest or a member of their family or whoever it is. So we're working with the victim or the source of supply, and we can make a difference to them. We can make a huge difference to them. To the narcissists themselves, no.
I have to say, this is perfect timing right now. This, meant to be, I think. Yeah.
You're not alone, Carolyn.
Yeah, lots of ahas. Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, in the ebook that comes with the course, there'll be lots of ahas in there as well. And the stories some of the stories that I've gathered up that I've put in the course, yeah, it's just like, oh my goodness. And they are true stories, by the way, if anyone's reading them, they are true. They're changed, so of course you're not going to know who it is, but yeah, you probably go, oh, this doesn't sound right, but it is. Yeah.
Do you think, Jane, that it's more difficult and takes more time to treat a narcissistic or treat a person affected by a narcissistic parent than a partner?
Probably, yes, because they've carried that all their life. Yeah. But I think generally what you'll find is, some people can just get caught in a narcissistic relationship, but they'll normally see it fairly quickly. But if they've come from that family of origin, then they are set up. There are studies that show that they are set up basically to tolerate what the narcissists dish out, because of course that used to be their normal.
Yeah.
The program,
from my experience as well with one particular guy who's realised his mum is, it's just he couldn't continue with me. It was this whole acceptance, this reality check, that time to actually think and reflect and to go within and to actually say out loud, actually, this is what's happening to me. That was really difficult with this one particular client. I'm still there, saying I'm here when you need me. But yeah, I think that must be it's a grief, hey.
It is. It's a grief, particularly when it's a parent.
Yeah.
Often too, if it's a very long-term partner and you've only really just seen it, it's a grief, and it's also a shame that you didn't know. But then, you know, back in the day, people didn't know.
No.
We've learned so much now, but all the information that we have now readily available to us, we just have to get on Google, was not available back then. So, you know, with my mother, I mean, she was dreadful, but she was just kind of labelled difficult by the family.
Yeah.
I can imagine that because I haven't done it fully yet, but I have gone through quite a lot of it. You could create an environment where you could work with a group of people together with that kind of system, like a 7 or 8 week a group where women come together and they connect and they get people that have been through the same thing, and the scripts you could do work as a group, couldn't you?
You could, yeah, absolutely, you could, and sometimes doing that work as a group, you know, then they do know they're not alone because there's other people there sharing their stories. So yeah, I think it's fine for group work, and I'm going to teach it not teach it myself. I'm going to be the therapist myself with an online group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine if someone needs real help with trauma, then you'll just tell them, look, we need to do a one-on-one.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you know, like every set of scripts and protocols we get, we kind of change them up a bit more to put a bit of our own personality in. And as you discover more about your client or your group, you may change things that you do. And certainly in a group situation, like you're saying, Justine, you'd probably say, look, you need a one-on-one with me, and you may need to go in and do parts or something that's more, I mean, these scripts are what I call hypno-visualizations. I mean, they are hypnosis scripts, but there's all sorts of other techniques you could apply if you felt that you needed to, just using your own professional judgment.
And they are really good. I've read through.
Thanks, Justine.
Sorry, I missed before, Jan. Are you training in this?
I've created a course.
Oh, wonderful.
For therapists. So if you go to janhaldane.com, courses for therapists, you'll find a link to it there, and there's a coupon code for $60 off the price for Hypnosis New Zealand people.
Wonderful. And is that online, the course?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
okay,
the course
cool.
is online.
Oh,
yeah, that's kind of my thing now, is doing online courses.
I want to share that link right now on it.
Thanks, Justine. Thanks.
Website, the price, the code, all that kind of stuff. I think it would be, personally, I think it would be a brilliant way to get people coming into the clinic as well, because so many women that need hypnosis have experienced it. So I think it would be an excellent, if you've got the space, group thing, incredible.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Would lend itself very well to a group. And I mean, if thinking back to this counsellor, very experienced counsellor, saying that 80% of clients, you know, have been affected by this. I mean, that's huge. So there's a lot of scope there for us to use it to get new clients and to help a lot of people, really. So I can put all those, I can put the links in the chat on Facebook, if you like. And then everyone, the people that weren't here as well, can see them.
Yeah. Can you check your website up here now, just for, and we'll put it on both of them.
Yeah. Let me just go on here. There we go. So if you want to So janhaldane.com, courses for therapists. And you'll get the link for the course there. And so what you want is the coupon code, this one here, HNZ OCT 2020.
Awesome.
When does this start, Jan?
Sorry?
When does this start?
Oh, it starts anytime you want. It's fully online. So
Right.
you just do it. And so yeah, you've got the ebook and also the workbook that you can actually give to your clients to work through. And then you've got your own script book and a therapist handbook just explaining the process like I have tonight. Yeah, so it's kind of like a done for you 7-week program, essentially. And so you just sign into my Thinkific School, Jan's School, and put in your coupon code, and you can start whenever you like. You can download all the PDFs, and yeah.
Awesome. Jan, what do you recommend charging for a 7-week program? What do you charge if you're doing one-on-one?
If I was doing one-on-one, I'd probably charge about something like $7.99 or something like that, perhaps, maybe more. For a group, $497, but that's US dollars.
Yeah.
So yeah. But really, I mean, like anything, it's you know what you charge your clients in your area, you know, all the stuff that we have to contend with. So
yeah.
With a group, of course, you can charge less, have more people, and generally get more referrals because there's more people to refer from.
So it opens up a whole new, almost a clientele, because if you had flyers out there explaining what it is and you were allowed to put it in places with information on what it is, then it does open up another group, my mind's just thinking, it does open up a whole new group of women that possibly wouldn't have felt as though they would want to talk about something like it, because like you said, the shame, but if they see it advertised, or you know, they'd probably come along and touch the water, especially in a group, and sit down and quietly, you know, and then start hearing things, and it will open them up to being okay with it.
Definitely. And you know, with the group energy, you tend to kind of feed off each other. That sounds horrible, but you know, one woman tells her story, and then it clicks, something clicks, and then the other woman goes, oh yeah, and then it just kind of rolls from there.
Got the energy of a group.
Yeah, the energy of the group, and people talking about it, and feeling that they're not alone, and hearing something in someone's story, and suddenly realizing, oh my God, yeah, I had that too, but I didn't realize at the time, you know, that happened. And that's really comforting to feel that you're not the only one, that perhaps you're in a group of, let's say, professional women, and who've, you know, some of them have got really high powered jobs, and you're thinking, wow, it happened to them, and yet they're CEO of a corporation or whatever. And so it can happen to anybody can get caught. And you know, with guys too, I mean, you know, a guy could run a group for guys. I think it would be fantastic.
Awesome. It would be awesome.
You know, if they can get the guys to talk about it, because some of those men are suffering and they've just got no real support systems. Now, Jenny, you want the website address in the code.
I was going to say, the only thing you'd have to watch in a group is to keep the covert narcissist in check. That's easy. It's not wanting to be the victim. You have to rein them in.
Thanks, Jan. For some reason, my chat, I haven't got anything in there, so thank you. I'll take a photo. Thank you.
I'll put it on the Facebook links as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Afterwards, so everyone can see it. Yeah, the whole the narcissist thing. The covert narcissists are scary. I find them really, really scary. Yeah, I guess just nodding. Yeah, they are just just
We had it. My husband and I worked. My husband and I worked for one, and yeah, and the dynamics in their family, like the two boys would have been narcissists, and the wife was definitely a victim. And it was just a nasty setup, man. It destroyed my husband and I in 4 months, and we're very strong people, you know. So that was our sort of real big experience. So I totally, you know, understand how people could be feeling now if they're in a relationship with a partner. That's a long time to deal with it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you know, women, again, because it's mainly women that I've seen, they've just totally lost themselves. They don't know what they want anymore because they haven't been allowed to have what they want. Oh, okay, Karen, great to see you. Yeah, so they don't know what they want, who they are, and for years they'll have this voice in their head every time they go to do something for themselves. You know, there'll be this flashback of, oh gosh, should I be buying that or going there or doing that? It's just absolutely horrible. Actually, I've got a little story here that I could read you. It's very short. If you want to just sit back and relax and listen to this, and if you want a copy of it to use for clients, just let me know, and you're welcome to it. So I don't know who wrote it. I do know the book I got it from, and I've got the reference to the book on here if anyone wants it, because it's a great book. So this is called The Parable of the Scorpion. A scorpion sat on the shores of a river one day, needing to get to the other side, but the river was too wide and there was not enough stones to jump across. He begged the various water birds, mallards and geese and herons, if he could catch a ride, but they pragmatically turned him down, knowing too well his cunning and his sting. He caught sight of the lovely swan making her way down the river and charmingly pleaded to her attributes. Please, beautiful swan, take me across the river. I couldn't imagine harming something as beautiful as you, and it is not in my interest to do so. I simply want to get to the other side of the river. The swan hesitated, but the scorpion was so charming and so convincing. He was close enough to sting her right now, and yet he did not do it. What could go wrong? The trip across the river would take only a few minutes. She agreed to help him. As they traversed the river, the scorpion expressed his gratitude and continued to offer his compliments about her loveliness and kindness compared to all of the other negligent river birds. As they arrived at the other riverbank, he prepared to jump off. And right before he jumped off of her back, he lifted his tail and stung her. Crying and injured, the swan couldn't understand why he'd done this. After all the promises, all the flattery, the logical explanations. Why did you sting me? She asked. He looked at her from the riverbank and said, I'm a scorpion. It's who I am.
Very good.
And that kind of illustrates really the point. Oh, okay, Clarissa, you want to know the energy-based practice, how to deal with ill-wishing, psychic attack, and spirit attachments. Okay, well, the best way to deal with ill-wishing and psychic attack is to raise your vibration. Clarissa, are you still, oh, you are still there, yes, is to raise your vibration. So this is just in a nutshell. Spirit attachments are very difficult. I would say, unless you're experienced in that yourself, to actually refer them off to a spiritual practitioner who's very experienced with spirit attachments. So a spirit attachment, for anyone who doesn't know, is an entity that attaches to someone and can change their behavior, can change how they appear. We can see their face change. So that's just very quickly telling you how to do it. Always keep your vibration up, meditate a lot, keep your chakras balanced, and if you feel that this is happening, then I would say get the course. It's not a very expensive course, and there's a lot of information in it, and there's all sorts of scripts, and I've recorded all the scripts so you can use them with your clients as well. Heaps and heaps of information. So yeah, I'd say get the course.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jan, for coming and sharing all your expertise.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and yeah, for anyone wanting to check out the course, we're going to have it on an email and on our Facebook group. Awesome.
Alrighty, well, thank you everyone for being here, and go forth and help a lot of people get over what they're suffering from narcissistic abuse.
Thank you, Jen. Really good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Have a great
Bye.
weekend, everyone.
Yeah, you
You
too.
too.
Bye,
Thanks.
everyone.
That was
Bye.
wonderful. Bye.
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 Bye, Jen. Thank you.